Hello everyone, my name is Damien. This is going to be episode number 1 of Beginner's Java. So, what we're going to be talking about today is Java programming, obviously, setting up your first project in Eclipse, turning on line numbers, which it's kind of a visual tweak more than anything, but we'll get started with that. So, to turn on line numbers, you're going to go to Window, Preferences, under General, Editors, Text Editors. You'll see about halfway down Show Line Numbers. And you'll just turn that on, hit Apply, hit OK, whichever works for you. From there, let me just delete this. I started this and then I got interrupted. That happens so often. So what we're going to do is go to File, New, and I have Java project and project right there, but let's assume that for some reason you don't. You're going to come in here, you're going to find Java, it's a folder, and you're going to go to Java project. For the project name, we will name this Lesson 1. And from there, you can just hit Next. As long as you see a JRE or a JDK here, that's perfectly fine. So next, this new Java project, Java settings thing comes up. I want you guys to be aware that this exists, but that's about all. We'll get more into this a little later. So you can hit Finish on that, and come back up here to File, New, Other, and once again, we'll go to Java class. You'll hit Next, and we'll name this, let's just call it Lesson-1. Actually, that's not valid. So let's just leave it as Lesson, and it's going to tell us the use of the default package is discouraged. That's fine, because for right now, we're not going to get into packages. We're going to keep things easy. So from now on with your projects, I want you guys to click off public static void main string args, but only on the first class you add to a project. I don't want you guys to do it for this lesson, and you'll see why. I want to talk through what it means. Not really what it means, but where it should go. So we'll hit Finish here. And you'll see that it spit us out this little bit of code right here where it says public class lesson. So the very next thing we're going to do is that public static void main string args. Now, I will tell you guys a little bit about what this means, but I don't want to get wrapped up on it because it's so... Java is very beginner unfriendly in that regard, that they throw something like this at you for your first lesson. There's really no way to get around it though. So public class lesson, the only thing I want you guys to really know is that this lesson needs to match the file name right here. So when we see lesson in public class right there, it just needs to match right here. That's all I want you guys to know about that for now. Same thing with this next line. Public static void main string args. Again, I don't want you guys to even waste your time thinking about that. Let me explain to you in very basic terms what this means. It means that inside of our file named lesson, we're making a spot called main where our code will be executed. So that's all I want you guys to think of it for now. I don't want you guys to hurt yourselves and try to go out and read up on this, because it deals with so many different things that we're going to get to down the line that it doesn't really matter. Like public's an access modifier, static is the instance, void is the return type, main is the name, string is an array of strings, args is a name, and then there's a scoping bracket. So I mean, that's what it all is, but again, we'll get into that way later. So from here, we're going to do a simple system.out.println, and we'll just say hello world. And so that right there is about the simplest hello world that you can show somebody in Java. So we'll give this a run, and it's going to ask me Do I want to run it as a Java application? I do. And then you'll see down here that it spits out hello world, which is great. Now, obviously, that would be a very quick first video if I left it off here. So, why don't we go into one other thing before I leave this alone? We'll talk about different types of variables and how we can assign them simply. So, when we're doing simple math, something just like 5 plus 5, a 5 is known as an integer in real life. It's a whole number in a sense. So what we'll do is we'll take int and we'll call it my number equals 5. And so then I just want to show you guys a couple of things that we can do with this. So we're going to copy this, system.out.println my number. Okay, so there's a few different ways that we can sort of play around with this. So actually, let me make this look a little nicer. We'll say my number, let's do like value of my number. Okay, and then we'll do plus my number. Okay, so what this means right here is that we're going to print out value of my number just like it appears here inside those quotation marks, followed by the value, meaning whatever's after that equal sign, my number. So let's take a quick look at what happens if we just run this normally. So you'll notice that it says, hello world, value of my number 5, which is what we'd expect as we just set it equal to 5. So now let's try doing a couple of other things to it. So let's say I wanted to paste that same thing. I copied it before I made some changes to it. So let's say I were to do that same thing and then say plus 5 and just toss that into parentheses, just like that. So if I were to do that, you'll notice that it now says value of my number 10. So that means that whenever I'm outputting a variable, if it's of type int, I can simply do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and other mathematical functions right in my output. However, what if I want to just change the number for good? What if I don't just want to do it when I output? Well, then I can say my number equals my number plus 5. Now, once again, we'll print out the value, and you'll notice that it comes out to 10. This time I don't have to do any funny stuff up here inside of our output string. But this statement right here isn't exactly right. That's a good way to think of it, but if we're using this number again, what we can do to simply add 5 to it is simply use plus equals instead of plus my number, or my number plus 5. So in this case, we'll once again save and run, and you'll see that we've ended up with the same thing again. So let's just progress on. Now, as a final thing before we sort of leave this off, we'll talk just momentarily, I know that this is running a little long, about other types of variables that there are. So the ones that we're going to be dealing with most predominantly are string. And all a string is words. Hello world is a string. So then there's also double. And double is simply numbers with decimals. We'll say long numbers. So I threw in a couple digits of pi and then just jammed on numbers. Float. And float is the same as double, but for smaller numbers. Int. and that is just whole numbers, positive and negative. So I want to say small, but it's not really. So, I mean, it's small compared to all the other types, but it's not tiny. So, I don't know what maxint is. It changes based on your operating system. So, we'll just say that a good example of one is 1234. I think that the max nowadays is like 2 billion or something. So, lastly, the final sort of data type that we're going to worry about right now is called a Boolean. And a Boolean is simply true or false. And those are actually the only two values that a Boolean can have. So we'll talk about how these things work together to control your program. So I hope that you guys will join me for my next lesson. My name is Damien, and I'm glad that you joined me. Have a good evening and happy holidays.